in the tradition of Abbott and Costello, the Three Stooges, and the Reagan administration. You could probably put any presidential administration in there instead of Reagan. Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review a movie that, I don't know, I mean, as time goes on, I mean, like in a couple years, it's going to be 30 years old already. A movie that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I don't know, I guess I can't say recently, but, you know, several years ago I ended up coming across which is now out of print, DVD. I never had the DVD. The DVD originally came out in 2004. I probably ended up coming across it maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago or something like that. I never really watched it. It'd been a long time since I watched it since, and when I watched it again after I got the DVD used, I'm like, wow, I remember why I really liked this movie. I'm coming at you to review Brain Donors, of course. And this is a movie that's been with me ever since it came out in the theater. At the time, I was a big John Turturro fan. Basically, John Turturro really entered my radar basically in, I don't know, 1991 or whatever. I mean, he did a couple Coen Brothers movies back to back. He was in, of course, well, he was also in Do the Right Thing, then he was in Miller's Crossing, and then of course the Coen Brothers put him in a movie all for his, you know, starring role for basically him being the lead, in Barton Fink. And Barton Fink was really brand new, I think, on video in like the spring of 1992 when this movie came out. So by the time this movie came out, I'd probably seen him in possibly Do the Right Thing already on home video, and then, you know, Miller's Crossing, and, you know, just recently saw and loved at the time Barton Fink. So by the time Brain Donors came out, I was like really a big John Turturro fan. And it's funny because I don't know, I mean, there was really no internet, or if there was, I sure as hell didn't have no internet in 92. I mean, I don't think there people were really on it yet, or whatever, it was really a big thing yet. And I don't know how the hell I even would have found out about this necessarily. I mean, the only two ways really are, you know, TV, which I didn't really watch much of, or I guess, you know, newspaper ads for movie times and posters and showtimes and stuff were, I guess, pretty much the main way I'd find out about this. Maybe there was a trailer, you know what, there could have been a trailer for it on like another VHS tape or something like that, but I was all gung-ho for a John Turturro movie. He was kind of a hero to me at this time in my life. I was like 15 years old. So I really liked him. I loved him in Barton Fink. I mean, he had a kind of a minor role in, kind of overly dramatic role in like Miller's Crossing. I mean, it's still a good role, but, you know, I really liked him in Barton Fink, and I just liked John Turturro at the time in general. So it was a no-brainer to go and see this. And I think I saw it like 2 or 3 times in the theater, actually, probably once with my mom. I don't know if my dad and I went to this or not, but I would imagine I would have dragged my dad to see this, and then me and my mom and a buddy of mine would end up going on. I think I saw it for the 3rd time in a drive-in. Actually saw this at a drive-in, and I recorded on audio tape because, you know, at that drive-in you could listen to, you know, they had an FM radio station to tune into to listen to the movie audio. So I brought a portable tape recorder and I recorded a lot of the dialogue, because this movie is very, you know, dialogue driven, one-liners and stuff. So as a 15-year-old, it was fun to be able to record audio from this movie and have fun to play it back and listen to the funny dialogue and stuff like that. But this was just, I don't know, this movie came out at the exact perfect time for me, being a John Turturro fan at the time, and just being 15 years old and being a goofy kid, and, you know, liking comedy and being a goofy kind of funny kid myself and stuff. It was just, it all came out at the exact right time, and I just loved it from day one. And I still to this day, I've never seen any Marx Brothers movies, but you know, obviously this is heavily influenced by the Marx Brothers, and it might even be kind of a remake / rip-off of like A Night at the Opera or whatever it's called. There's some Marx Brothers movie that might be called A Night at the Opera or something, which is, you know, you just basically take opera and put ballet in there, and this is probably pretty much that. And like I say, I never saw it, or I've never seen any Marx Brothers movies. I probably should, because I absolutely love this movie. This movie is really cool. I think it was originally titled Lame Ducks. That's because in the opening claymation, this movie starts, the opening credits of this movie, before this movie even starts, like the opening credits of this movie are absolutely amazing, where it's all claymation, and you've got these three characters that are basically done in claymation, and you've got like this hot busty nurse claymation and this duck claymation. And it's funny because, you know, you can tell, like, even maybe when they did this animation, that maybe the movie was still titled Lame Ducks, because there's this duck, you know, this egg that hatches, and this duck is kind of prominently featured throughout the opening claymation stuff. But then at some point, of course, the title was changed to Brain Donor. I mean, Brain Donors isn't much better than Lame Ducks. I'm not exactly sure why they changed the title. I mean, I'd probably just as soon have it be Lame Ducks. But maybe you don't want the word lame in a movie title, because who wants to go see a movie with the word lame in it, you know? That could be it, you know. I mean, it's just like calling a movie Lame Movie, you know. 2 for Lame Movie, please. Why do you want to see this? It looks lame. But maybe that's why they changed the title. But if that's the case, I mean, you really should have never had that title in the first place. It should be said, and I'm talking about titles, that this movie is written by Pat Proft, and I don't know if he's the only one that was involved, because it's touted as being like, you know, from the producers of Airplane or whatever. I don't know if any Zuckers are involved in this movie. It might just be Pat Proft. I'm not 100% sure. He's a writer, of course, I think, who, you know, contributed to Airplane or whatever like that, or some of the Zucker Brothers productions and stuff from earlier on. He's a guy from Minneapolis, and that's why you hear the word Minnesota said, and that's why you hear the word Minneapolis said throughout the course of this movie, because he's actually, from what I understand, you know, Pat Proft, the writer, is from Minneapolis. So once the absolutely amazing opening credits claymation scene is done, which pretty much by the time the end, or by the time the opening credits are done, you've almost got your money's worth already. That's how cool the opening credits are with the claymation. But after that's done, we are introduced to the character of Jacques, who I don't think, you know, this guy's really great in this movie, and I don't think I'd really seen him in anything before or since, or at least if I had, I didn't know about it. But this guy's pretty cool. His character lives at this huge estate, you know, that's owned by this character that will, you know, go on to permeate a lot of this movie. Mrs. Oglethorpe, but he, you know, it's really, we introduced to his character first, and it's really, the gags they do in this movie, this is like super underrated movie. Oh, another thing I want to mention, that this is directed by Dennis Dugan, who would go on to, you know, direct some of the awful, you know, horribly awful, you know, annoying Adam Sandler movies later on in the mid to late 90s, and I think even early 2000s and stuff. So Dennis Dugan, I don't know if this is like towards the beginning of his directorial career or whatever, but he would go on to helm a lot of Adam Sandler movies and stuff. Not that that's, you know, I'm not a big fan of those movies, but this is like, you know, one of his movies that I can actually say I like, because you know, I like John Turturro, and the other two guys are kind of cool too. But what I was saying is, you know, we're introduced to this character of Jacques, who, you know, just has all these gags, all these sight gags, where he gets up and opens all these curtains. I can't really even explain it. You know, his bed, he just flips his bed over after he gets up to make it. He doesn't make his bed, he just flips it over so it's automatically made all of a sudden. He just rips off his like pajamas, and it's just his day clothes underneath. And there's just so many just clever kind of gags that, you know, this movie starts out with this character. Basically, the premise of this movie is this rich woman, I think Mrs. Oglethorpe, I think her husband had just died, so basically this fat kind of, you know, conniving lawyer guy is reading the will, and obviously I don't know if he expects to or hopes to get a, you know, a part of the will, or I don't know. I mean, even if he doesn't get a part of the will, he's the lawyer, so he gets a chunk of something because he's her lawyer or whatever. But what ends up happening is she mentions something, that she had some incident or whatever where, you know, this Roland T. Flackpfizer, that's John Turturro's character, showed up in the nick of time and saved her from something or whatever. Roland T. Flackpfizer is this ambulance chaser lawyer who we're introduced to right after, you know, the opening scene of the movie, and of course he's chasing an ambulance, which is funny. I mean, oh my God, John Turturro is just in his element in this movie. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can only assume he enjoyed what he did in this movie. If not, he's a really good actor. He just, like I say, this movie, the release of this movie was just at the exact right time for me, being, you know, having seen Miller's Crossing and Barton Fink and stuff, and now I'm ready to see John Turturro in this absolutely, you know, slapstick, you know, fun role, and it came out like at a wonderful time of year in Minnesota, which is like April, May-ish or whatever, I think is when it came out. So it's springtime. It's just, you know, it's just comedy. It's warm weather. I mean, everything. 15 years old. It just, everything just fell into place when this movie came out, and they end up summoning, you know, Miss Oglethorpe sends Jacques to, you know, basically track down Flackpfizer so she can have his help with the reading of the will, or the will, you know, the legal stuff with the will and the recent passing of, you know, her husband. And one of the things in the will is that the will that stipulated the late husband wants is to like own, you know, or establish and operate a ballet company, and I think, I don't remember. Oh yeah, that's okay. It's like they got Flackpfizer to read the will or something like that, but that's you know, that's something that's basically the whole premise of this movie. So the late husband wants, you know, the money to be used to, or the, you know, the money, part of the money to be used to establish and run a ballet company. So that's where, you know, scheming Flackpfizer and now Jacques, and then they meet this cab driver, this guy who I'd previously seen, of course, if you've seen, you know, the movie from the mid-'80s, what the hell's National Lampoon's European Vacation. He was like the fat slob British guy in that cheap hotel in England or whatever. The same guy is the third guy here. So I'd known him from that movie. So he's the third guy of the kind of Three Stooges, Marx Brothers clan, if you will. They meet him because he's a cab driver, and I mean, oh my God, the one-liners in this movie and the sight gags and everything they pull off in this movie is just so fun, and just like, oh my gosh. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to even count like the gags, the sight gags, the one-liners. A lot of times you're laughing during a joke, and then like there's 2 or 3 jokes that happen either visually or audibly, you know, like through dialogue, while you're still laughing at the first one. I mean, a lot of times you're just like bam, 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 and this funny stuff, these jokes, these one-liners are just like laid out like a, you know, a Tommy gun or a minigun barrage, and it's just like, this movie is so much fun. It's just one of the most, you know, and I guess I'm biased because I saw it as a 15-year-old and stuff in the spring, but you know, it's just so much fun and just so goofy. I mean, a lot of people might not like the you know, the Marx Brothers shtick, which is completely understandable, but you know, I absolutely love it. And you know, being a big fan of John Turturro, and he's like kind of at his prime in this movie, and I think he's, like I say, he feels so well at home in this role, and in being in a movie like this, and just so well suited, and such a comic genius, really. I mean, he's just so great in this role, and you know, I haven't seen everything he's done after this, but it's almost a shame that, I mean, I don't think he's really necessarily done anything like this necessarily since. I mean, I know he was a big supporting part in that Adam Sandler movie, Mr. Deeds or whatever and stuff. So he's done stuff like this since, but I don't think he's ever done it in this capacity where he was like a lead, you know, the lead, you know, starring role or anything like that. I mean, I was, you know, as much as the original, or as much as the Michael Bay Transformers movies are kind of a headache and a pain to get through, I was actually, he did actually come back to do some of this kind of shtick in those movies, didn't he? But maybe to, you know, a little lesser of an extent, or in some cases even a more nasty of an extent. But I guess, you know, he's come back to this kind of comedic thing several times since, and like I say, I hardly have seen everything he's done before or since or whatever, but that's the premise of this movie. Then they come across this there's this uptight, you know, great Volare, and I don't know if it's in the will that, you know, I don't think it's in the will that the husband or the late husband wants Volare, but at some point someone recommended, maybe the fat conniving lawyer recommended Volare or something like that. So then there's a kind of a competition for, you know, against, or you know, between the three, you know, these three guys, you know, Flackpfizer and the other 2 guys, and the fat conniving lawyer to see who can get Valari signed first, and whoever can sign him maybe gets the job or whatever. So it's kind of these three guys against the fat conniving lawyer or whatever, and then doing this, trying to recruit Valari. They come across this young dancer couple, which she's a ballet dancer, and she's trying to get her boyfriend, who's also a dancer, discovered and stuff. So there's this thing with them, and so the three guys are kind of on their side, and the fat conniving lawyer is kind of on Valari's side, and Mrs. What the hell's her name? Oglethorpe is kind of caught in the middle, and I mean, I really, I guess, I really not going to necessarily do a beat by beat of this movie or whatever. I guess I'll just say that that's the premise. This is a really short movie. Like, what's it say on the DVD? 79 minutes. I mean, that's with closing credits, and it should be said incidentally that even after the movie is done, before the end credits start, there's another little brief kind of tail end of between the end of the movie and before the end credits claymation scene, which is just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool that they ended the movie with that again. But it's just the antics of these three guys are battling against the conniving fat lawyer and Valari, and also they're doing it for their own personal gain, of course, and also to help out this struggling young dancer couple, trying to get this ballerina's boyfriend discovered, or get them both discovered, I guess, if you want to be fair. But I mean, the stuff that goes on and the antics and stuff, I mean, it's goofy stuff, but I mean, that's the whole point, and oh my gosh, I just rewatched this recently, and it's just like, because it came out and I saw it for the first time in the theater like at least 3 times in the spring. It just seems to be like, and when spring comes around, so a lot of times I feel like getting out Brain Donors, because it's just like, for me, since it came out, in the spring, it just goes so well with spring, Another thing I appreciate about this movie, being a fan of classical music, and even as a 15-year-old I was, obviously this is a movie that revolves around ballet and stuff, and they don't do ballet to, heavy metal music and stuff like that. They do ballet to classical music. So if you're one of the rare people in this world these days who actually appreciate and enjoy classical music, that's another thing that's about this movie that's really, really enjoyable, is that, it doesn't feature a whole hell of a lot of classical music, but there's maybe 2 or 3 scenes that feature classical music, and there's, whenever there's ballet stuff, certainly there's classical music and stuff. And the grand finale scene where, towards the end of the movie, where they're, that's really funny, and they're sabotaging, like, Valari's act and stuff like that with all their antics and stuff, is all kinds of classical music permeated through, in the background and throughout these scenes and stuff. So that's an element about this movie that, on top of just, being John Turturro and him doing what he does best, kind of at the prime of his life, and just all these silly antics, which are like seemingly never-ending, just barrage of funny antics, and just not only that, but you've got classical music, and even to take it further, if you're a fan of ballet, which I guess I can't really say I am one way or another. I mean, I like the women, I guess, doing their ballet stuff. I mean, being a heterosexual male and stuff. I'm not necessarily a fan of ballet per se, but what the women do, I mean, men too, I guess, but I'm not really looking at the men, but what the women do and stuff, and being in the shape that they're in to do this stuff, I mean, let's face it, that's really fun to watch, and, it's kind of sexy and attractive stuff, and talking about sexy women and stuff, I also don't want to forget to mention that there's this kind of Marilyn Monroe-ish blonde in the movie that is one of the, I mean, I don't think she's a dancer, but she's a, purported dancer in the, a ballerina in the movie, which they end up using to try to frame Flackpfizer in one of Miss Oglethorpe's apartments or whatever. And incidentally, this chick is, I saw this before I saw New Year's Evil, but I would come to find out later on that this is the same chick from New Year's Evil in the drive-in scene, with the blonde in the back seat with the guy. It's like, it's about time now, ain't it? Maybe next movie. It's that chick from New Year's Evil is this chick in Brain Donors, who's like the, the blonde chick who's in the pink, nightie or lingerie during that scene when they're trying to frame Black Pfizer. So that's kind of interesting. And I think she may have been like in Playboy or something like that. I keep forgetting to search her name online and put the word topless after her name. I might have to do that soon here. But so she was someone who I think was in Playboy or something, and I think she has since gone religious or something like that. Whatever, people got to do whatever people got to do, I guess. But I think maybe that'll pretty much do it for my review of Brain Donors. I'm sure as hell not going to do a beat by beat of this movie. It'd take probably longer than the movie is long to even do it. I just want to say that, I mean, oh my gosh, I absolutely love this movie. And I'm going to go 3 stars out of 4 stars for Brain Donors. As much as I like it probably more than that, I feel like it doesn't necessarily deserve more than 3 stars. I don't know. I suppose a person really could, if they wanted to, go 3.5 stars. I'll just say something like between 3 and 3.5 stars out of 4 stars for Brain Donors. It's absolutely a movie that, like I say, just represents just such a specific time in my life, and it's springtime, and such a just great time in my life. And incidentally, I do have the VHS of this, the original VHS of this movie. I couldn't find it for the life of me, but I found something which might be even a little more cool and a little more rare. I did find this, which is then I would have, after I got Laserdisc player, I'd come across this. I think I got this used from the same place I got some of those Friday the 13th Laserdiscs I showed you in a video a couple of years ago. So I got it previously viewed, I think, but Brain Donors Laserdisc, which probably isn't the most common thing you'll ever find. It's the only way in the 90s to see this in widescreen, which of course is just probably matted 185 or whatever, but still. What do we got here? Oh, it just says Laserdisc on the bottom. But of course, this was the only way to have the digital surround stereo. This wasn't, what they called, this wasn't in like discrete audio, or probably, at the time or whatever. It is on the DVD now, but I don't know if this would have even been mixed in, like discrete audio in 92 or whatever, but this is just a stereo surround digital audio Laserdisc. There's the back for you. Antics and more antics. Kind of cool. I knew I had this. I couldn't find, I don't know where the hell the tape is, but I did a little search for this and I was able to find the Laserdisc for you guys. Just shows, I wish I could show you my original VHS from, 90. I think that came out in like late 92 on tape. Wish I could show you that as well, but got the Laserdisc. I did have the tape before I had the Laserdisc, and now of course I've got the DVD. This probably, I wouldn't imagine this would ever come out on Blu-ray, but the DVD looks good enough. And I think, talking about the DVD, I mean, it is kind of it does, for just being a kind of a just dumb comedy movie, it looks actually, I like how it looks, like especially some of the ballet, like the colors and stuff, and like the ballet scenes and stuff, like the lighting, and I don't know, it's just the colors, and especially on DVD, I think it's an actual kind of a good looking movie as far as cinematography goes, and they use colors and stuff sometimes for this and that. So I think that'll pretty much do it for my review of Brain Donors. If you haven't seen it, maybe it's on, streaming online, maybe you can rent it for streaming. I'd highly recommend it. Like I say, it's not a movie to be taken seriously. It's basically just it's funny because it's like probably one of my favorite PG movies. Of course, I think Rocketeer is probably PG as well. So there are a few PG movies that I absolutely love, and this is one of them. You can be safe to, well, actually there's some sexual innuendo and stuff like that, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to know if this would be PG nowadays or whatever. Probably not, but yeah, I'm kind of rambling, but this, a lot of times, as you guys know, if you watch my, any good number of my videos, that if I'm excited about a movie or if I'm passionate about a movie, I tend to go on and on and on about it. But as I said, I would recommend this if you haven't seen it, if you can see it cheaply. Or I looked on Amazon just today, and the DVD is actually, I think you can come across it for a relatively decent price. I would have thought it would have been more expensive being out of print, but you know, I don't think a whole hell of a lot of people know about this movie. So I think that'll pretty much do it for my review. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, we'll see you on the next one. I can't find my VHS, but I did find this, which might be even a little more interesting. It's like a video store promotional item from 1992 that came out around the time, you know, that this came out on VHS. It's like an inflatable punching bag thing with the, at the time it was the cover, you know, poster / cover art with the three guys, like, you know, hiding in the jacket with various stuff coming out, and ballet shoes and toilet paper and sausages and this and that. So it's like an inflatable punching bag promotional display item complete with the, like, the, look at that, even got like an inflatable dog that's, you know, chewing on their coat. So I figured I'd definitely share that with you guys since I'm doing a review of the movie. As I said, this might be a little more interesting than just looking at a VHS tape. A inflatable brain donors promotional inflatable standee, if you will. And here's the back of it. Brain donors in the tradition of Abbott and Costello, the Three Stooges, and the Reagan administration, on video cassette and Laserdisc, obviously, as you saw. Trademark and copyright 1992 by Paramount Pictures. All rights reserved. There's the reverse side of the dog. Let's just put a purple splat on it. Okay. It ended up in the road, and his blood is purple. So there's that, what I would imagine to be kind of a brain donor's home video promotion rarity, I'd say, more or less. Inflatable brain donors promotional standee.
But brain donors, I'd have to give it 4 stars. I mean, it keeps you going forever. I mean, it's so damn funny. No one else liked it though.
Hey, I liked it.
Besides me, you, and my mom.
Oh, I thought it was funny. Real funny. One-liners, but they're still good.
Yeah, I know. They're better one-liners than most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was because the one-liners were like through the whole movie. Almost every sentence.
And if John Turturro says any one-liner, it's funny. I think, anyway. But anyway.
I like that thing where he's talking about I'll do my anything that'll be in the best interest for the ballet company. You know, oh, no need to commit suicide.
Yeah.
That was good. The choking the chicken thing.
Clearing the snorkel.
Polishing the cue stick.
Fucking the carrot first, because
Well, yeah.
whatever you call it. Fucking the carrot, just clearing the snorkel. Or no, polishing the cue stick, clearing the snorkel, choking the chicken, clearing the snorkel. I forget which one.
It's whatever you call it, plucking the carrot, choking the chicken, polishing the cue stick, clearing the snorkel.
Ooh, it's so high. Ooh.
Yeah.